Well, good day to you. It's Joel with The King Country, dropping in to let you know that our brand new film, Unsung Hero, is in theaters now.
It's Luke here. We've teamed up with the creators of Jesus Revolution to bring you this adventure of a lifetime. It's a powerful, true story about a family uniting, growing in their faith, and facing the impossible together.
In theaters now, unsunghero.movie for more information.
Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Welcome to The After Party, a TSF Network podcast, a mixtape of purposeful, encouraging, and fun content from across all the shows who are part of our podcast network. I'm Mandy Hernandez, the project manager.
And I'm Lonnie, the digital marketing specialist. Welcome to this very fun Thursday episode of The After Party. If you listened on Tuesday, you heard we are trying out a new format here on the podcast, releasing 2 episodes a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
That's right. On Tuesdays, you'll hear a clip of 3 episodes from 3 of our network shows. And Thursdays, we share exclusive conversations with our network staff, podcast hosts, and more behind-the-scenes fun from all of us here who make up TSF Network. So today, we are excited to share an exclusive conversation with Paula Faris from The Paula Faris Show, hosted by the Director of Operations here at the network, Fallon Klug.
Fallon leads us in a chat with Paula to learn more about her shift from TV to podcasting and what makes this medium so fun for her. They talk favorite guests, favorite topics, and favorite moments of The Paula Faris Show. So let's listen in.
We have Paula Faris on the After Party podcast today. Welcome, Paula.
Oh, Fallon, it's so great to hear you and to be with you. And If you're hearing anything in the background, my dog is outside and is barking at a squirrel. I mean, I have impeccable timing.
Yeah.
It's a party, though, so why not? She just wants to join it. So.
Hey, it is a dog-friendly place here, so the more the merrier, in my opinion.
Literally, the moment you said hello, she started going mental because she's barking at a squirrel or something outside.
She can sense that I'm a dog lover. She's like, ooh, that's someone that I want to meet. I get it.
Oh, yes.
Paula, first we got to acknowledge that we have a Michigan podcast going on right now between the two of us, some Michigan gals, some U of M Go Blue fans.
That's right. Do you think we should be really obnoxious and sing Hail to the Victors, or do you think that would turn people off right away?
I think we should give it a couple beats of the song. Hail to the victors valiant, hail to the conquering heroes, hail, hail to Michigan.
Okay, that's enough. And on my desk, I have a photo of my dad and I, who has now passed, but it was an alum.
Oh, yes.
Standing in the big house. It's a photo that I have.
How cool.
I would reach over and show it to you, but I can't really reach it from where I am. But it's a picture of us on the sideline. One of my favorite moments with him. So.
How many family members have gone to Michigan? So my dad and my brother went, and my grandfather.
Okay, so my dad went, but like the whole Faris family, the cousins, all the cousins have gone. And a lot of them are like really smart engineers, that sort. Sure. So it was my dad, and I feel like it's like 10 of my cousins have gone. And I grew up in Jackson, which is about 20 minutes just outside of Ann Arbor, which is where the University of Michigan is. So, yeah.
I love it.
We're basically like the suburbs of Ann Arbor.
Yeah. There you go. I have to tell you a little secret, Paula. I did apply to go to the U of M.
Did.
And they waitlisted me.
Are you kidding? Who waitlists Fallon? That's what I want to know. I mean,
but to be fair, I think it was honestly the Lord being like, I got to put you on the wait list because there's actually a better option out there for you of a school that I hadn't visited yet.
That's great.
And it ended up just being the perfect fit. So I went to Hope College.
Oh, in Holland. I have a lot of friends that live near Hope or have kids at Hope. So my story isn't dissimilar. I wanted to go to the University of Michigan from the time I could. I feel like it was one of my first core memories was going to the stadium with my dad when I was like 6 years old.
Yes.
I always wanted to go to the University of Michigan, but I was also the youngest of 4, a bit of a wild child, a bit of a rebel. And I think my dad thought I would get into way too much trouble, honestly. So he did not want me. He's like, Paul, I don't want you to go to U of M. It's too big. You're going to get lost. You're going to make way too many bad decisions, which he was spot on. So I went to a small Christian school in Ohio.
I love it.
And in Ohio, of all places, which is where I've met my husband. So I guess good things can happen in Ohio.
It's true. It's true. We'll take John as the win from Ohio. Thank you so much, universe.
Exactly.
I love it. Okay, Paula, let's talk about the podcast. That's why we're here.
Yes.
The Paula Faris Show. We are so thrilled to have you on the network.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, first of all, for supporting our business and letting us support your podcast and letting us just have a beautiful partnership. It's been really fun.
It's been great.
Before actually we dive into the podcast, since this podcast is called The After Party, I'm curious, Paula, what's one of your favorite parties you've ever been to?
Oh, gosh. I'm kind of that introverted extrovert. Like, I don't like parties thrown for me, but I will go to a party for someone else. Like, my parents threw me a surprise birthday party for my 16th, and it was one of the worst days of my life. I don't like to be, I don't like big crowds celebrating me. Like, I like, my husband took me out to Buffalo Wild Wings and we watched football and had beer for my 40th. Like, that's all I wanted. I don't like to be the center, but I like to celebrate other people. So I would say, like, one of my favorite parties was when my dad turned 80, we took him to Disney. He'd never been to Disney. And it was the entire family. There were like 20 of us, which was a bit of a hot mess trying to get all the kids and all the adults. But we celebrated his birthday at Disney, and it was really special. That's the kind of party that I like, is where I can celebrate somebody I love. And it's more of an intimate atmosphere. But if it's just like a big party and thumping music, like I get a little, I don't want to say anxiety, but I don't like screaming over the music. Maybe I'm old.
No, I hear you. I'm with you.
But I like smaller, intimate parties. Super Bowl parties, I don't even like to go because I actually want to watch the game. So it's usually just my family, and maybe we'll invite a couple of friends over. But smaller, intimate parties are kind of my thing. Even, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't think I'd be like that. And I've been to a lot of like really awesome like Oscars parties and like the after parties. It's just not my scene. So give me a beer and some wings and I'm fine. Like that's my wheelhouse.
You said one of my favorite things, Buffalo Wild Wings. So you and I are in the same camp. I am a huge B-Dubs fan.
Okay. did you ever call it BW3?
No, but I like it.
But there's no 3 W's. It's Buffalo Wild Wings. It should be BW2, but we always called it BW3 growing up. Like,
interesting.
And I can't figure that out. Maybe we don't know how to count in Michigan. So it's B-Dubs, BW2 is to be technical. That's what it is. But let's go to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, I would love
that.
Done.
Can Buffalo Wild Wings sponsor one of our podcasts?
They're probably listening. So yeah, Buffalo Wild Wings, just reach out to us. We would love for you to either sponsor the after party or the Paula Faris Show, whichever one.
And speaking of parties, the very first party that so I have 3 kids. They're now 16, 14, and 10. I think the very first party we threw for our youngest, because he's the youngest and just gets the leftovers. He had his very first birthday party at Buffalo Wild Wings. That's where he wanted it to be. So, and that was like when he was 7 or 6 years old. Sorry, buddy. Your first party, but that's where he wanted it.
I love it. Hey, I respect it and I get it. It's delicious. Hey, okay, we'll stop talking about wings, but one more thing. Are you a bone-in or a boneless?
Bone-in.
See, I'm a boneless.
Oh, you are? Okay, we can still be friends. It's all right. Yeah, what? To each his own. We have to respect the poultry, however you want it.
And honestly, more for you. You get more of the bone-in, I get more of the boneless. It works out well. I don't want to prepare it, though. I don't want to look at it before it's been cooked. None of that business. Fair. But I'll eat it, and I'll love it. Okay, well, I can't wait for our Buffalo Wild Wings date where it's going to happen. And I'm starving right now. I don't know about you, Fallon. I know. We'll just about lunchtime here. Okay, so let's talk specifically podcasts. So I love, one of my favorite things about your show is how specific you get and the topics you talk about per episode. And the way you title is very helpful to the listener because we know exactly what we're getting. So a couple examples of those episodes that I've loved. Should social media be banned? One thing you must have in every relationship. How do you choose these topics? Paula, how do you decide how specific you get in each of these episodes? Well, a lot of it is help from you guys, too. I think, I did 2 other podcasts and they were very faith-based. And the listener knew what the topic was going to be about. Sure. And I wanted to branch out and have some broader conversations, not just about faith. Yes, I am a believer in Jesus, saved by grace through faith, all of that. But I wanted to do a bit more of a mainstream podcast and talk about the things that people are talking about, but
the very first season, when we launched in the fall of 2023, Fallon, I think I was trying to be too, I wasn't as specific as I needed to be. I was trying to be the master of all, but you know how that works out. You're the master of none. And I just wanted to have great conversations, but I realized the things that people kept asking me about, and I had great guests in season 1, Whoopi Goldberg, Trey Kennedy, but one of the highest rated podcasts I had was that Ask Us Anything with my husband and I. And that really got me thinking. And I'm I love to tell people stories and I try to be pretty perceptive as to what's going on. And I was like, it's so interesting that this is what people these are the topics that they're coming to me about because I am a mom. I'm a mompreneur. I struggle. I'm very open about everything that's going on in life. So I really tried season 2 on. We're really trying to focus on the things that we're talking about as parents. And that's not just parenting your kids, but how do you maintain a healthy relationship when you have kids? How do you juggle work and life? All of these conversations that we're having in our home, those are the things I want to talk about. And what's funny, I'm so nosy. My nickname growing up, Fallon, was Paula 20 Questions. And people are like, oh, you're so curious. I'm like, no, I'm just really nosy. I eavesdrop all the time. I eavesdrop at the gym. So I know this holiday season, I'm going to do a series or I've got to do an episode about how do you split your time between the in-laws. And there were 4 women at the gym and I wanted to get my recorder out so bad because that those conversations that people are talking about at the gym, at the office, at the water cooler, in their homes are the ones that I want to talk about. So really for me, it was just getting out of my own way and listening to what people want me to talk about. And so it's very listener driven. People, I'm DM me, what do you want me to talk about? Every episode now is a suggested topic from somebody typically through a parental lens. But so I can't really take any credit. I just got out of my own way and started listening to what people wanted me to talk about.
It sounds like you lead with curiosity, which I think is really important. Of just you just stay curious about what are people buzzing about and how can I stay curious in that topic and lead that conversation?
Absolutely.
And so that's really, as a listener, that really pulls me in because we're talking about the same things.
Yeah. And it's I want you to laugh and learn. I don't take myself too seriously. And some of them are heavier topics, but sometimes it's just me weighing in, but I don't have all the answers. I'm not an expert on all of this. So sometimes my husband will join who brings, and it's important for me to bring that other perspective. I love the other perspectives. And sometimes I'll have an expert on. So, so it's not just me talking about it often in an uneducated way. I'm talking about it through a first person experience, or I'm bringing somebody on that's really knowledgeable about it, about the topic that you want me to talk about.
Right. So. And what I also think is really interesting is the past couple of months has been focused on parenting and what questions parents are asking one another of how to raise kids. What do we do about social media? This, that, and the other. But I also noticed season 1, you still weaved family and parenting and kids in those episodes. It always felt like that was a nucleus of the conversation anyway. Yes. And so to move to more a clear and specific, this is what we're going to talk about in the lens of parenting because these are the questions you're asking. And I'm in that phase of life. It just kind of felt like that was the natural fit anyway.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong about that at all. And but I think people are craving authenticity, and I had to learn that because the first season I was so focused on big name, big guest, and I realized, yes, people love those conversations, and as you just mentioned, a lot of the narrative, the topic was probably leaned more in the parenting direction or the work-life balance direction or the relationship direction. It wasn't really until the end of season 1 when I just was like, hey, John, to my husband, let's do a couple of Ask Us Anythings. And people resonated so much with those. And that's when I had to get out of my own way. Just let's go with this. Sometimes I'll have a big guest, but I'm not so focused on the guest. I'm focused on the topic now and the conversation that can come out of that. And that you might check 2 boxes, but people just want to hear an authentic voice. And I think they're kind of over the celebrity culture. They want to see the vulnerability. They want to see the authenticity. They want to see real life and they want to hear about it. And they want to know that they're not alone. So
totally.
And if they can learn and laugh in the process, then hey, that's a win for me.
100%. What are one of the biggest questions that you get repeatedly from your listeners that they say, hey, Paula, we really want you to talk about this topic, or we have this question. Can we dive into that on a future episode?
Yes. Oh, it's interesting. It's like two camps.
Okay.
And I'm going to be diving into it after the summer. People, or a lot of women who are in like their 30s and 40s want me to have conversations about what the heck is happening to our bodies right now.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's that conversation, which I'm really excited. I can't tell you how many people have asked for that topic. And then the other one is really like kids and teenagers. So all of these conversations around, but really kind of digging into teenagers and tweens, and the tweens can start as early as like age 8. So, and that's my wheelhouse too. Not that I don't want to have the conversations about younger kids. I'm actually got an episode with Sean Johnson and Andrew East who have like 3 kids under 3. So I like to talk about it all, but I think my audience is really kind of leaning more into that tween and teen. I have an episode coming up about, teen drinking and substance abuse, and 2 episodes coming up with tween and teen boys. So really, some of those, I'm trying to lean a little bit more into the tween and teen topics. So not that I want to leave out and exclude that younger audience, because we're also approaching it as like, we can all learn, parents especially, we can learn something from everybody. 100%. It doesn't matter if they're in the same boat. And when I'm talking to younger parents with younger kids, it's maybe helping them out. And when I'm talking to a parent who has older kids, I want their advice. I want their mentorship. Totally. So we can all glean and lean on. Oh, I like that. We can glean and lean on one another. Yes. That's a good, maybe if somebody wants to do a podcast called Glean and Lean.
Or maybe that's your new hashtag for the Paula Faris Show.
No,
Glean and Lean.
Glean and Lean. No, it's BW3s and other things that make no sense. That's going to be my new hashtag.
I cannot. It'll be like our little inside joke. Everyone will be like, what's that hashtag? And we'll just like, no, it's like a little
5 people will get the joke. So they'll be like, what are these Michigan girls talking about? So
exactly. I love it. Okay. So you mentioned you started the podcast back in the fall. So
I did, yes.
Of all the episodes that have released so far, what's one of your most, whether it was with a guest or with John or whoever, what's one of your most memorable that you kind of look back on and you think, man, I really love that episode. I love that conversation. Right. Anything that jumps out?
Yes, definitely the 2-parter I did with Sissy Goff, who is a child therapist who specializes in counseling young girls and teenage girls. So I had Sissy and Caroline, my 16-year-old daughter, on to help us. I think the title was How to Connect with Your Moody Teenage Daughter.
I'm sure she loved that.
So there's a little spiciness and everything too. But that was such a I continue to go back to that conversation. It was so helpful, and that's probably one of the episodes I've heard the most about, because it's you just feel so helpless. Even though, yes, we were teenagers, as my daughter said, you were a teenager in the 1900s, Mom, you don't get it. So it was such a great, memorable, emotional conversation. Yeah. And I think one of the other ones was probably with Whoopi Goldberg, because of our history when I worked at The View, and people just have this perception that, and yes, for a while we had a bit of a fractured relationship, but we have since become very dear friends, even though we agree on very little, but we do have some commonalities. And so having that conversation, showing how you can still be close with someone and have a deep relationship with someone and not agree on everything, and it's okay. Yeah. So that's one of the conversations that was memorable for me too, because I was really curious to see how people would react to it.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool. I watched that on your YouTube channel, and it was just fun to engage. Just like it's just sometimes it's just more fun to engage visually with your favorite podcast host and shows, and so I appreciate that you do that as well.
And I will say, like, the YouTube, it seems like people are more interested in those bigger names on YouTube.
Sure.
But listening, they're more interested in just like it's an interesting dichotomy of audience, because you're releasing audio versions on in the podcast platform and podcast arena. And then you have a video version too, which is fun for me because I did video for so long. So
right.
And there's no glam. It's just like sitting in my office, which is in my basement. So, but it's real life. Sometimes my dog crashes the party and scratches on the door, or I have to go get her. So
I would love that. I would literally love that. Okay, so can we talk about your television days for a minute?
Let's talk whatever you want to talk about. I don't care.
Great.
You can anything you want to talk about. That's like, I'm an open book. I don't get offended by anything. So
okay, perfect. I want to talk about this because I was a communication Spanish double major at Hope, and I thought that broadcast television was maybe going to be in my future. I did a couple different things in television, but that side of it, I didn't really dive into as much as I thought I would when I was in college. So of course I'm still like so interested in it. I feel like I have a million questions because I wasn't able to like experience that side of media.
Sure.
So I'm curious, was there like, for you having that experience and moving into that world, was there a moment in your life where you watched a TV interview or you watched some sort of television broadcast and you thought to yourself, I want to do that?
It's such an interesting question. I didn't grow up thinking that I wanted to be a network news anchor. It wasn't even in the realm of possibility for me. It wasn't until I was in high school, my junior or senior year, I can't remember, my drama teacher, Mr. Barsoon, he knew how kind of lost I was with trying to pick a major. And it's, there's so much pressure on these kids. Figure it all out.
Totally.
It's only one decision, but it's the rest of your life.
Right.
And I asked him, I was like, I don't really know what I should pursue. And he's like, well, you've always been really curious and you tell great stories. Because he would cast me as the narrator in all of the productions. And I was like, Mr. Barsoon, I'm an actress. And he's like, no, you're the narrator. So I always I kind of gravitated towards narrating stories, telling people stories, the inflection. And he's like, you should go into broadcasting, just consider it. And so that was literally the first time I even thought about it. But it only made sense because of, everyone has God-given talents and abilities. I mean, I was so curious growing up. That was my nickname, Paula 20 Questions. I always loved to get to the bottom of things. I love to advocate. I love to tell stories and challenge people. So it only made sense. But when I went to college, Fallon, I pursued broadcasting, but I pursued production behind the scenes because I had no self-worth and confidence. And even though I had people routinely speaking life into me, like, you should really be on camera, you're actually decent in front of the camera, I was like, no, I don't, I didn't have the confidence for it. And I was so overwhelmed and overcome by my fear of failure that I didn't go for it. And it wasn't until after college I had graduated, I was working in production. I was also mountains of college debt. So I had 3 jobs. I was cleaning apartments. I was working at Arby's. It was my 2-month stint at Arby's. I love their roast beef sandwich. Don't bash them, okay?
Me too, girl.
And I was working in video production. And it was, what happened? I was newly married. 9/11 happened. And I remember being so gripped by the coverage and the storytelling and how these reporters were able to tell this horrific tragedy, this once-in-a-lifetime tragedy, with such eloquence and such profoundness. And it was in that moment that the dream everyone else had for me, I finally saw it for myself and accepted it. I accepted that I was going to have to go for it, and I was going to have to step into my fear. The fear didn't disappear. So, literally the next week, I quit my job. Actually, at that time, at that time I was working in radio sales. So the Arby's stint happened a year prior. But that just goes to show I had a lot of weird jobs after college. So I was selling radio airtime at Sunny 95 in Columbus, Ohio, of all places. And I was newly married. My husband was coaching. And I said, I've got to go. I feel this desire now. And I also feel the courage to step into my fear. And so I quit my job. I was making excellent money as a 25-year-old. Quit my job. I started applying to the 3 TV stations in Dayton, Ohio, and I got 1 call back. In the meantime, I was substitute teaching just to make some money. I was a terrible substitute teacher, by the way. You don't want me teaching your class, just to pay some bills. And I got 1 call back, and I got hired to be a production assistant. So literally the lowest job on the totem pole. And he asked why I wanted to leave a lucrative position and get back into TV. And I said, well, I just, I really want to be on camera. I really want to tell stories. And he's like, well, you're not going to do it here. And I said, I know, I just need to get my start. And that's what I tell anybody. If you have this big dream, just don't be afraid to go for it and just get your foot in the door. Yes, I got my foot in the door 100%. Making $7 an hour. to be a PA. I was doing a little bit of everything. And because I had production experience, I knew how to shoot, edit, produce, write, all of that. I borrowed the equipment in my downtime. And back then it was like really, it wasn't just like this cute little camera. It was like a 25-pound camera with the heavy battery pack.
Yes.
And like the clunky tripod and all the equipment. So I was shooting everything. And then I was filming my own stand-ups. And so this was happening in my downtime. And I handed my news director, who is the boss of the television station, I handed him this tape. And I said, I just would like for you to give me some feedback on it. Because remember, I was trying to take advantage of that opportunity to at least put a resume tape together. Because if you want to be on air, you don't just hand someone a piece of paper. You actually have to show them what you can do on camera. So I handed it to him just for some feedback. And he's like, you did this all by yourself? I said, yeah, I shot it. I edited it. Everything. And he's like, okay, give me, put one more together. And I was in the midst of it. Of assembling another tape for him. And I still remember it was the evening news. So as a PA, you're doing, again, a little bit of everything. I was writing for one of the evening shows, writing some news copy. And he came up and tapped me on the shoulder and he's like, I'm going to put you on the air. And he put me on the air. And I mean, it was crazy. So I'd be like running the teleprompter one show, and the next day I'd be anchoring like the sports. So he had me work in the sports department because I just always loved sports growing up. That was a lot of the production work that I did. When I was in college, we worked at the Olympics. We worked for Fox Sports. We covered all the home basketball games, which is how my husband and I fell in love because he played basketball and it's super hot when he plays. So anyway, there you have it. And I just get your foot in the door, kick that door down, make the most out of the opportunity. Yeah. And then I worked there for a year. I got another job in Cincinnati, Ohio as like I wasn't like splitting time between being a PA and reporter and sports anchor and all of that. I was the weekend sports anchor and weekday sports reporter. And then I worked there 3 years. Then I got a job at the NBC affiliate in Chicago as their main sports anchor and worked there 6 years. And then moved to New York to work at ABC News doing their overnights. So I didn't even know they had an overnight news. Yeah. And then, then I got promoted to GMA weekend anchor and co-hosted The View. It was crazy. So
that is so cool.
Long story, I know. Sorry, no, I don't have an elevator pitch version of that. Sorry.
No, it's awesome. I was just going to ask, you mentioned like at first you were pretty self-conscious, didn't really have the confidence to be in front of the camera. What built that confidence? Was it literally just stepping into the fear and putting in the reps and practicing?
I really felt God just saying in the same, like that verse, Joshua 1:9, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, that I really felt God saying in the same way I was with Moses, I'll be with you. And so I just really like I was like, okay, God, I'm going to take this step and you're going to have to show up for me. And what I love about this verse is at the very beginning of it. And a lot of us, like I have it hanging in my foyer, but, it leaves out the have I not commanded you to be strong and courageous. Yeah. It just says be strong and courageous, but the have I not commanded you. And I really felt God saying, I'm telling you to do this. Yeah. So I kind of felt commanded to not be, afraid and discouraged, but to, for the Lord your God's with you everywhere you go. So I really felt the Lord kept saying, hey, you're going to be scared. Just walk in it. Right. You have to take a step though, Paula, and I will show up in the same way as with Moses, I'll be with you. But it's, what's so great about that verse is, don't be afraid, don't be discouraged, for the Lord your God's with you everywhere you go. You got to take that step first. It's just like, you never know if you're going in the wrong direction until you actually start moving. Same thing. Right. So if you don't move, you don't know if you're going in the right direction. Like you have to take a step, and it's okay if, and often the things that we're called to do or we're asked, it's just an act of obedience. It's not like the end game isn't the success of it. It's like, but did you do it?
Right. So, and I was just going to say that it sounds like your work in that plan that the Lord called you to was literally the obedience part. And he was able to take care of the confidence building part.
Absolutely. He did.
Like, and you just have to be obedient to that.
You do. And I realized too, it's not me, it's him. So just really I was like, okay, God, you got to show up. You got to help me with this fear of failure. You got to help me with this like fear of just being a total disaster and train wreck on camera. I had to get over that and be much more forgiving with myself. And I think, if I would go back to my younger self, it's like, you're going to learn, I would tell anybody younger than I am, you're going to learn more from your failures than you are from your successes. So stop calling them failures. They're not failures because you're learning from them. And guess what? Like the fear of failure is the most common fear that we have as humans, but we feel so isolated and alienated in it. Like we're the only one, but we're not.
Yes.
Like the majority of us have a fear of failure. So just, you know what? And if you fail, guess what? It's a learning. It's a opportunity to learn. Just kind of like,
and also join the club. We're all failing.
Yes,
so like, join the club. We're all flailing
daily. I embrace my failures now because I'm like, well, something to learn from. So get better.
That's good. Ooh, Paula's preaching on this podcast. I love it.
I know. Just call me Pastor Paula now.
Pastor Paula. Okay, Pastor Paula. So moving from television to podcasting, tell me that kind of transition. Like what about the podcasting medium felt inspiring for you to become a part of?
Because it's unscripted. So when you're in TV, and especially at the network level, like it is so heavily scripted and there's not a ton of opportunity. Like if you talk too long, they're going to go to black and go to commercial. Like, so, and you're often doing these long form interviews. Like I would do a long interview that was maybe 45 minutes and we'd have to get it down to 2 minutes. And I'm like, there's so much more to the story. So actually my love for podcasting was born when I was still at ABC News. And I said, hey, so many of these conversations, and they knew I was a person of deep faith.
Yeah.
But I was always curious about those quotes that, hit the cutting room floor faith was something that we just didn't include in a lot of the pieces that we talked because it can be a polarizing topic so I was like, I want to do something just on faith because it's so deep and personal to so many people, no matter what their faith is. Right. And it's something that we don't talk about. So I just I said, can I do a podcast on faith called All Journeys of Faith. And I talked to people from different faiths about what they believed, why they believed, and how it informed who they are.
Oh,
so,
that's cool.
and you could have these long form interviews. Right. And I mean, I talked to Sam Harris, who's like a famous atheist. I talked to Muslims, I would talk to Christians, right? Yeah. And because it was at a network news organization, you had to make sure that you're representing and talking to people from multiple faiths. So it was just really fascinating to see how their faith was formed and how it informed who they were. So, and you could have these really organic, long form conversations, which is what I loved. I just love to talk to people.
That's awesome. So when you have podcast episodes now on the Paula Faris Show, do you come with a list of questions and ideas of how you're going to carry the conversation? Or are you a little more like, this is the title of the episode, or this is kind of the focus I need. Let's just see how it rolls out.
It's a little yes and yes.
Yeah,
it's both. A little bit of both. And so now that I know, going into it, kind of the topic that we're going to talk, we're going to talk about how to have a sex talk with your kids and when to have it, or so. I'm coming up more with the topic first, mainly. I would say that's 80% of the time. And I don't always have the title of the episode, but I know we're going to be talking about social media. So I know we're going to be talking about the 5 love languages. I know what the guest is bringing to the table. And then I try to have just a couple of just a couple of, before in TV, you'd have scripted questions because a lot of times you're interviewing people and you can get in hot water if you're asking the wrong thing, from a legal perspective, right? And you don't want to be liable for saying the wrong thing and assassinating anyone's character. So the questions were a little bit more scripted. Here it's just okay, ask them about this, ask them about that. And so it's just that way it becomes part of the conversation. And I don't try to do too much. I really like follow-up questions. Yeah. I like to see where the conversation is going to. And I will take listener specific questions about it. For instance, we did when we interviewed Sissy Goff and we had my daughter Caroline, we did one part was just on relating to your teenage daughters and connecting with them. And then the second part was all answering listener questions. So, and I'm doing something similar with David Thomas, her counterpart, when it comes to tween and teen boys. The first part is just how do we connect with them? It's my personal, and it's more of a personal conversation. And then the second part is all listener and viewer, all those YouTube viewers, all those questions were.
I love it.
So it's a little bit. So yeah, it's a little bit of both, but mainly I know now what topic or the angle at least, and I'll see where that angle takes us.
I love it. Love it. I can't wait for you to have David Thomas on. I mean, you had Sissy Goff and now to have David Thomas. I mean, those two are just my favorite.
I have recorded that conversation and just let me tell you, he made my boys make so much sense when they're not making any sense.
I bet he did.
He said something so funny. He said there's scientific proof. Like if you've ever wondered, I have 2 boys and a daughter, an older daughter. If you've ever wondered why when boys get together, and even grown men, they do really stupid stuff, right? He said, Paula, scientifically, when you have multiple boys or multiple men, it still applies to men, when they get together collectively, scientifically, their collective IQ goes down. And I'm dead serious. I have laughed so hard and I'm like, this makes sense now. That's just, it's scientific. It's kind of how they're wired. Because I've always wondered, why do they always do really dumb stuff when they're together?
Sure.
Because collectively the IQ goes
that
down.
But
gosh, hilarious. I love those boys. Gosh, I love my boys so much. I love them so much. And
they keep us young. They keep us playful.
Yeah, they give me a heart attack. I'm like, girls are a heartache. Girls are a heartache, drama, manipulation, emotion, and boys are a heart attack. Because I'm like, just don't kill anybody, please. Don't. You cannot fly off the roof. I'm sorry, you're not invincible.
Well, I'm not a mom yet, so hopefully one day when I am, I'll feel prepared by listening to your show with all these parenting tips.
See, and I do love hearing from some of my friends that are single or their aunties who still love these conversations, and like you need allies in
100%
in any circle. So I don't want anybody to feel alienated, but yes, the show really is for like parents. What are you guys talking about at your dinner table? What are you talking about at work about what it's like to be a parent? What are the things you're talking about as a parent? Those are really the conversations that are going to drive the show.
I love it. I also think it's important in podcasting when you're talking to an audience that you realize like, yes, your focus on this podcast and this season is parenting and kids, but that doesn't mean the show is just for parents. It's also for people that want to become parents or
100%. Yeah.
People that are maybe empty nesters that are past that phase, but are kind of reflecting back on what that was. And now they're grandparents. So they're kind of learning the new ways of parenting and kind of new methods. And so I think it's always important to just kind of expand, like just because it's parenting conversations doesn't mean it's just parents who are listening. It can, feed to a variety of people, even like caretakers, teachers, nannies, like
100%.
It can be a lot of different folks that interact with kids day to day. So
and caregivers, that's like the largest growing, sector right now. It's like 75 to 80% just of the workforce. So, and that's mothers, fathers, anyone caring for somebody else. You might be caring for your sister. You might be caring for an aging parent, or you're caring for a grandparent or anybody. It's a large sector.
Right.
It's the largest and fastest growing sector in the workforce, at least. So
wow, that's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for all these different audience groups, people, lifestyles to come in. If they haven't checked out the Paula Faris Show, you guys have to check it out. So many good past episodes to catch up on, but also obviously tons of new stuff coming out that we're excited about. Is there a guest coming up besides David? I know you mentioned him already, that you're really excited for the listeners to get some time with? Or any like dream guests you're hoping to connect with?
Barbara Corcoran says she's coming on, and I had a date scheduled with her to record. I love her and all the work she's done at Shark Tank. But of course it was like the one day that I was traveling to talk, and so we had to reschedule it. There's several that I'm shooting for. I don't want to jinx it, but again, I'm really going for great conversations.
Yeah.
One of the most requested guests I've had, and I hadn't heard of her until my community told me about her. Her name is Dr. Mary Claire Paver. She's like the menopause guru, like this doctor. She's got a massive following. Awesome. It was actually is it not Mel Gibson?
Mel Robbins.
Thank you. I was like, Mel Robbins' most popular episode. And she talks all about, like, again, what's happening in our body. So I'm excited to be talking with her. I know my community is really excited that I'm talking with her. And again, I didn't even it's just listening. Okay, this is, yes. Okay, sure. I'll reach out. And I tell my community, I'm like, is there somebody you want me on? I will slide into their DMs and I will ask them to come on the show. So
that is a great example of a good podcast host, really taking in your audience's feedback and letting them be a part of this whole process. Like that's what's really cool for me in podcasting. And it's not like a show pony performing for the audience. It's like, it's really a community that is like creating this together, because you're getting feedback from your listeners constantly about what they want to hear. And then you get to go out and pursue those conversations. And that's awesome. I think that you're doing it really well.
Yeah, you just gotta, as a podcast host, you have to get out of your own way. You're nothing without your community. Yeah. And so it's just a matter, I've had to get out of my own way repeatedly and just listen. Just listen, and the community is telling me what they want me to talk about. So
I love that.
And I know they're going to want me to talk about Buffalo Wild Wings some more.
Yeah,
so
of course.
It just really needs to sandwich the conversation. We began with Buffalo Wild Wings and Michigan.
Did.
Go Blue. And we're going to end with Buffalo Wild Wings and Michigan.
We will. BW3. Well, Paula, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
You,
such a pleasure.
Fallon. You're such a great conversationalist, by the way.
Thank you.
Stay curious, my friend. I love that. You do a great job leading it.
Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate it. Okay, well, we'll see you soon over at the Paula Faris Show.
Yes, we'll see you soon. And hopefully I see you in person and we can go to our favorite spot.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about.
And maybe Arby's as a nightcap. Good for old time's sake.
Little roast beef sandwich for dessert. There we go.
Love it. All right, we'll talk to you soon, Paula.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in today. Make sure to follow The Paula Faris Show on your favorite podcast app and check out some more episodes.
And make sure you hit follow on this podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episodes with us. All right, we'll see you next week.